Welcome back into the Friday Night 360 AZ preview show. This is the 2018 season finale. We're going to have Braden Liebrock, a Chandler senior tight end, coming on shortly. But first, Jordan, we're going to talk a little bit here about this 6A state title team in Chandler and a little bit about kind of what we saw out of this team this season and kind of what we're looking forward to. Let's start out just kind of by recapping the 6A state title game. That's the one you were at.
Yeah, and it was, I think the anticipation was it was going to be a pretty close game. Perry was kind of firing on all cylinders in this postseason. Chandler looked human for one of the few times all year against Highland in the semifinal. Some thought maybe that could be a repeat of their 2016 state title game, where actually Chandler was the upsetter over Mountain Point. But really from the get-go, Chandler just dominated. DeCarlos Brooks over 300 yards rushing, 6 touchdowns. Just an absolutely crazy performance by him. They had 8 rushing touchdowns total. Jacob Conover was efficient as can be, 13 for 18. Threw a touchdown, ran for a touchdown, a very Jacob Conover in a big win type numbers. And the defense just piled on. They had 4 turnovers. From front to back, it was a dominating performance. It never really felt like the game was at risk by any means, because they jumped out to a 14-0 lead pretty quickly and then was just kind of in control the rest of the way. So another really, really probably, if I'm thinking about their last 3, I would probably say this is the most dominating performance in a state title game that they had.
And I know we talked on AZ Audibles about how this Chandler team came out of that Highland game and it was reset, put that behind us,
right,
and kind of let's not let that happen again. So I'm sure that mindset kind of helped carry them to that win.
And Coach Iguano said after the game that this was the best 2 weeks of practice that they had, because it was, guys, we're not bulletproof.
We're not guaranteed, yeah.
And this is a Perry team that has played us close in the past. In the past calendar year, they've been 2 games where they've been in it with us. So if they're going to take a shot, they're going to take a shot. They're not afraid. They can go toe-to-toe with us. So let's kind of shut them up right off the bat, and that's exactly what they did.
Something in this Highland game that really stood out to me was this duo between Jabe Conover and Braden Liebrock, who I mentioned we're going to have on here in a bit. What is it about this connection they have? I mean, a lot of times you see in Arizona high school football, these quarterbacks have these really great connections with their wide receivers, but Chandler's a team that really has utilized Liebrock in that tight end position.
Yeah, and it's now in their second year where they're both playing a lot. Braden kind of came on last year, and especially in the second half of last year, he was very impressive. Jacob Conover has been the starter for 3 years, so he's had plenty of good wide receivers to go to, but as guys have graduated, Gunnar Romney has moved on, all of a sudden Braden has kind of developed into that go-to guy, and they're a group of players for Chandler that have played since youth ball. I was talking to Zach Bauer's mom, Stephanie Bowers, and she was telling me about the group that played back in like 6th grade together, and it included Conover and Braden Liebrock and Avery Carrington, who was injured for this game, but it's just a whole little squad that kind of came up together, and it's not just the 3-ish years that they were on varsity together.
Right.
It goes so much deeper than that. And I'm looking forward to talking to Braden about that, because I know that they were both, kind of everyone involved was pretty emotional knowing that this was the last time that they'd be playing together as Chandler Wolves, but obviously a lot of them continuing their football careers as well.
Definitely. Let's make a too early look at 2019 here for the Chandler Wolves. I mean, it is, December 5th. So we are just a few days removed from the state title game, but looking a little bit at what the Wolves are going to be returning in 2019.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to replace a lot. Jacob Conover is graduating to Carlos Brooks, some key members along that offensive line, Braden Liebrock, Avery Carrington. This is going to be a big group that's moving on for them, an experienced group. But I also know that Chandler right now is the destination if you're in the Southeast Valley. If you have a choice of in that area where to go and you're an elite football player, you're probably going to go there whether you are, no matter what year you are. If you, even in 8th grade, some families are starting to plan that out of, okay, what's going to set us up the best over the next 4 years and hopefully beyond. Let's start going to these districts. Let's start going to these schools. I know that this freshman and JV team are pretty special over at Chandler. So I don't expect a drop-off necessarily, but it's going to be a lot to replace. Gunnar Maldonado is going to return. He was a two-way player. He was hurt for a good chunk of the year, but he's a defensive back, a wide receiver, kind of do-it-all kind of guy for them. And that's one of the other things that with these teams, these Chandler teams, these Saguaro teams, these Centennial teams, you'll always hear about the Christian Kirks, the Byron Murphys, the Gunnar Romneys, that kind of crew. But what makes them so good is they usually have 3 or 4 guys that, in Saguaro, when I was talking to Jason Mons, it was the Brant Caseys, the Stone Matthews, just the really good football players that it's like, plug me in, get me on the field so I can go make some plays. I'm not going to have an ego about it. I'm just going to go help the team. And that's what I feel like all 3 of these teams, and even Northwest Christian, who on the 3A basis is consistently a 1, 2, or 3 seed, they have consistently those guys where it's just like, get me on the field, let's go win some ball games, let's go have some fun. And I feel like Maldonado definitely fits that mold. Malik Reed's a linebacker that I really like. He's picking up some offers, and that's the thing, you're starting to see some of these kind of the next generation
2020 guys
start to get those. But yeah, Zach Bowers is moving on. There's Max Sandlin, some key guys in the front 7, but Malik Reed's returning, and there are some other key pieces that will be there and have now logged some significant time for them. So, and the other thing about these Chandler, Saguaro, Centennials, usually they're up in the third quarter by quite a bit. They can get that second and third team in, so they're getting varsity minutes as well. It may not be the brightest of lights, but they're getting out there on Friday nights and getting some experience. So that's key for them as well.
Before we bring Braden in, let's go ahead and just kind of maybe look at 6A as a whole. I think Perry, there's an upside to this.
Totally.
Returning Chubba Purdy in 2019. And obviously they'll lose that connection with Colby Dickey. He's had that with the Purdy brothers for a couple years now. But they're losing some guys too on that line as well. But I think that there's some highlights there for Perry that they're going to take away from this season. You mentioned that strong playoff push they were making. And yes, the state title game didn't come as close as I think several people. I was definitely thinking it was going to be closer than it was.
I did
but
too.
I mean, you've got Perry in the 6A. You've got Highland, who I think will continue to be a contender. Brock Farrell in his second year put up a fight against Chandler in that semifinal game. You can't argue with that. And then obviously Queen Creek in the 6A, Liberty in the 6A. All of these teams that are strong contenders still.
Chaparral's returning a lot. Hamilton is a team that I think is going to be on the rise. Coach Zadebski is a really good coach, and he has his entire offensive line coming back. He has Brendan Rice coming back, one of the top receivers in the state. He has Nick Arve, the quarterback. They'll get a full season of him. And I just think that there are so many key pieces right now offensively and defensively, but predominantly on that offensive side, that I feel like the struggles that Hamilton has seen over the past couple of years where they're not quite elite, I feel like those could be coming to a close and they're going to start to be on the rise again. But again, Southeast Valley, there's so many good options. It's always going to be, I hate to view it as like a recruiting thing, but when these guys have options, top teams are going to, or top, I should say top families are looking at different options. So it's all about the pipeline of talent. So.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to have Chandler senior tight end Braden Liebrock joining us. Keep it right here.